thank you very much for joining us on The Voice of Job Seekers. And I want to thank you for subscribing to the show if you have, or if you have just found me on the blog. You can always go to thevoiceofjobseekers.com to leave a comment in the various ways that I have there. I just want to introduce to you Wendy Enelow, who has written more than 25 career books, including the latest as an editor of Modernize, Your Job Search Letters Get Noticed, Get Hired. She has had a number of major media coverages, including Wall Street Journal, New York Times, Chicago Tribune, and scores of other online, offline publications. We've been having conversations on and off for the past couple of years, but when she wrote this particular book and gathered together, which were apparently there's 60 career professionals from around the world who've contributed to this book. And really, I've got to say, Wendy, it's about time. I just want to introduce to you Wendy Enelow. How are you?
I'm fine, Mark. Thank you so much for having me.
Well, thank you so much for agreeing to be on. Modernize Your Job Search Letters, Get Noticed, Get Hired, is a book full of letters, different types of letters, and perhaps you can go a little bit into perhaps what motivated you into compiling this elite and quality group of letters that will help job seekers find their way to great jobs and great careers.
Well, there were a couple of things that drove this particular book. Number one, it's the companion book to a book we wrote last year called Modernize Your Resume.
Mm-hmm.
So my co-author and I, it was always our expectation to do both the resume book and then the job search letter book,
Mm-hmm.
number one. In talking specifically about job search letters, I think the most important thing about this book, and it might be a misperception in the marketplace, is there is not a single type of cover letter. In fact, in this book, we talk about 8 totally different kinds of letters
Mm-hmm.
that every job seeker needs to have in their arsenal. So if you notice, the title isn't Modernize Your Cover Letter, it's Modernize Your Job Search Letters.
Right.
Again, because there's 8 of them that most job seekers will use at some point in their search. And just referencing back to when you mentioned that there were 60 contributors, many of the books that I do, I reach out to other resume writers and career professionals that I know. I've been doing this for 38 years now, so
Mm-hmm.
I know a lot of those people, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of them, and ask them to send in their best job search letters or resumes or whatever book we're doing. And it then gives me hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of samples to choose from in order to showcase the best of the best.
Mm-hmm.
So it's nice to be able, you don't want a book where I'm writing all 80 or 100 letters in the book. You want to see diversity in style, in content, in format, etc. So this way, readers get the best of everyone and not just me alone.
Yeah, which I think is a great idea. And again, the diversity of style really helps because I think people also learn differently. And because they learn differently, they need to see something that they can align their writing style and their learning style with.
Right, you could read letter number 62 and be, that's okay, and then you read letter number 63 written by somebody else, and the content and the construct of that letter would so resonate with you.
Mm-hmm.
So, choice is good. Job search is confusing these days. It is not what it was decades ago. So everyone needs to be a pretty astute job seeker. And again, as I said, this book gives you so many different kinds of job search letters that you would use based on the circumstance.
Right. And I think, too, that context is everything. So that's why you got to have different different letters going to different professionals, and you may not find the exact one that fits you, but you can contextually take the content of one letter and apply it to yourself and still come out with a quality product and something that's persuasive, presented to an employer.
Right. You want to be able to send the letters that resonate. And let's say you were, let's say you were writing a letter in response to a job posting, where it clearly outlines everything that they want you to be able to do. How you write that letter, the information you share in that letter, and much more is very different than the letter that you would write to a networking contact, or the letter, or what we call job proposal letters,
right?
Or any one of a variety of other things. Now, of course, if you're in sales, let's say, there's going to be common denominators between many of the letters that you write, but they're all written specific to that audience, that opportunity, that network of people, whatever the case might be.
Right. Well, something I want to ask you about, and you mentioned cover letters, and there's a lot of discussion within our industry about cover letters. Are they useful now? Are they becoming obsolete? And we see the occasional article, cover letters are dead, like we've seen resumes are dead. Your take on cover letters, of course, is, most employers are not going to necessarily, or many of them not going to necessarily ask for them. But we know that we probably should send one anyway as an introduction to a resume, or essentially that the cover letter has now grown up to be networking letter, a thank you letter, a job proposal letter, or a letter for challenging situations. What's your take on it?
Well, I think first of all, you need to draw the distinction between a cover letter and an e-note. Because you can use quote-unquote cover letters or e-notes for any of the kinds of letters that we outline in this book, whether it be job posting, networking, referral letters, everything, thank you letters, everything except job proposal letters. They're a little quirky. And the real difference is that a cover letter is a separate Word document that you save and you send to someone, most likely through email or uploading. You're right, cover letters have morphed as everything in our world has morphed as a result of, the internet and instant communications and et cetera. More often than not, my cover letter becomes an e-note because the cover letter is the email message. Rather than saying in a message, hey, my cover letter and resume are attached, and you haven't really given the person much of an incentive to click on and read anything.
Right.
Instead, the cover letter has morphed into the e-note, your email message, which is shorter, harder hitting, very accomplishment-based or project-based or tech skill-based, depending upon whatever your profession is. But that letter or that email message, that e-note, is the first thing that someone reads about you. So use that as your modern-day cover letter in order to entice your reader to then want to click on and read your resume. And if I might go back to what you said earlier about people think cover letters are obsolete. When you look at surveys that are done now versus surveys that were done 20 and 30 years ago, the answers are still the same. A third of the people will never read the cover letter. The issue is you don't know which third. A third of the people will read the cover letter if the resume interests them. So they look at the resume first and then the cover letter. And then a third of the people will read the letter and then read the resume. So you never know who's going to read it, not read it. There is nothing it will do to ever hurt your job search, and it can do everything in the world to help promote and facilitate your successful search. So always, always, always send a cover letter or an e-note.
Now, can a cover letter be too salesy for the individual writing it? In other words, how much of it should be, in your estimation these days, in the way that people look at jobs? And maybe it might be the same as it has been always, but I know that cover letters of the past often don't say a whole lot. But how much these days should it be selling, quote unquote, selling yourself, as opposed to just a persuasive introduction of your skills?
I think it's all about selling yourself. Everything you do in job search is about selling yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Writing your resume, writing your letters, going on interviews. It's all a sales and marketing process.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you don't want to go over the top unless it would, be appropriate for your industry or profession. Like salespeople can be a little salesier in their letters because that's what they do for a living. And the result of, if you're successful in sales, you are going to have all these wonderful, wonderful quantifiable achievements.
Mm-hmm.
Someone who's an architect, it's not the same as writing to someone in sales. As someone who works in sales, and you can highlight sales growth and market share growth and all of that stuff. For someone in architecture, let's say, what you're going to focus on maybe are notable projects, or projects they brought in under schedule, or clients they were able to actually sell more work to, or innovative designs and design awards. So it's always about selling what makes you unique, memorable, and distinctive.
Mm.
The most important thing to remember, no matter what your field, let's say you're an accountant, every accountant does basically the same thing. What differs is the kind of company or organization in which you do it, and any highlight successes, achievements, etc.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't like cover letters that are just like a laundry list of skills.
Yeah.
As if you're an accountant, I know you do accounts payable, accounts receivable, general ledger, financial reporting, because that's what every accountant does.
Sure.
So instead of just listing those things, tell me how well you did them, how you made them better, what you did to impact the organization. So that's a long-winded answer coming all the way back to the beginning. Everything you do in job search is selling yourself, but selling it in not an over-the-top kind of way.
Yeah, I think that's probably, in my mind, in asking that question, that's what I thought about. Usually, people, if you're settled, it won't seem like sales, or if you're selling or trying to sell, it won't seem like the sale. Like you're selling a product, but a lot of people, they tend to overwrite and oversell themselves to the point to where it is over the top, and it becomes more vague than it does specific, using words like, yeah, I'm a hard, dedicated worker. Still, even in this day and age of what we've learned and what's been written about cover letters and resumes, people are still using those particular phrases. And they use all the other things that come behind it, which often doesn't add up to, specifically, what is your value proposition. So we hear that phrase very often. I'm just wondering now, have you've heard from or gotten feedback from people who are not career professionals who have used the book and successfully have gotten a result from it yet?
I don't know if I've heard from any job seekers yet because the book's only been out like, I don't know, 6 or 8 weeks.
Okay.
I've gotten some real positive emails, or testimonials or whatever, but I would love to say yes. Oh, of course, but it's been too soon.
Okay. All right.
The book, I get it before anybody else gets it, and I've been selling it. It's just now getting up on Amazon, etc.
Okay.
But I'll tell you, I have written a lot of books, so I have letters, emails, notes, etc. from job seekers, around the world with lots of acknowledgement and thanks.
Yeah.
And, one of the things that's so important about letters, and I don't want to forget to say this, particularly in relation to what you were just saying about letters being long and boring. The thing about your letter is you want to engage your reader. You want to say something in that letter, and that's why we like e-notes rather than traditional letters, because e-notes are shorter. So you want to say a few highlights, short, sweet, and to the point, that will instantly engage someone. And that can make such a huge difference in the number of interviews that you're going to be able to capture and the number of offers that you get, that you can then decide whether or not you want. People always say to me, I'm vacillating. I don't know whether to submit a resume and letter to this job because I don't know yet if I want it. Who cares? Still, yes, you should always do that, submit for everything, because the worst case scenario is you get an offer and you decide you don't want it.
Right. Yeah.
And so be smart about managing your search.
Yeah, and I think people are starting to take a little bit more of a cue and understanding that, there'll be times when it'll be hard to get a job because there'll be a recession again. There'll be difficulties in the job market again. But I think people are now understanding a little bit more the proactive approach that they need to have to their career, that it's always got to be on. You can't ever turn it off. And letters like this could be used even during your better times in your career, where it might be tempting to feel comfortable and complacent, that might be a time to start to do some things to either contribute to your industry or even to see what else is out there, to engage your market value.
I think you're absolutely right. Career management is a lifelong process. And yes, at points you'll find yourself probably in an active job search. And at other points when you're secure and happy in your position, what are you doing? You're sharing your expertise with others through articles, blog posts, LinkedIn groups, whatever, so that it keeps your name front and center. And you are building and expanding and nurturing your network. Mm-hmm. Because as much as what has changed in job search over the last, decade or two, and everything has changed, but the core thing hasn't changed, and that's that networking is by far your best way of finding a job. Now, we might have automated networking tools now, so it's not the same tools and process, but it's still all about networking.
Yeah.
So, as you said, when you're, you don't want to be complacent, and you do want to maintain some level of visibility within your industry and profession. So when you need all those contacts, they're already there and they know who you are.
Right. Yeah. The human touch probably will never leave any type of career search or job search. I know there are people who try to automate it to make templates out of it, and though there are things that are useful about templates and automation, it can never replace one person relating to another, one person persuading another person, or another one person showing their increased value over a period of time to another. Those things can never be replaced, and that's what makes it valuable to have tools like your books, especially the job search letters.
I agree 1,000,000%. First of all, in the world of professional resume writers, the word template is like a 4-letter word.
Yeah.
That's like a really bad word.
And I did that on purpose. And I did that on purpose.
No, I'm sure you did. There is nothing about resumes and job search letters and LinkedIn profiles and whatever that is templatable.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's all customized to you and your life and the picture you want to present. And that's the thing. Sometimes people will ask me, wow, Wendy, you've been doing the exact same thing for 38 years. And I'm like, no, every day is different. Every client is different. It's never the same thing.
Right.
Which is what keeps it fresh for those of us that do this for a living. And it's also the reason why it's not a templatable, automated process. If I might throw in one other thing real quick.
Sure. Yep.
That's probably the greatest problem in job search is that people invest so much time and energy uploading their resume and responding to online job postings, and it creates this false sense of productivity. Wow, I uploaded my resume to 37 different jobs today. Well, you know what? Your chances of hearing back from any of those 37 are pretty slim. So, it creates this delusion of productivity and being proactive when in reality that's not the case.
Well, it's a lot of how we grew up. We grew up thinking that the more, the better. When these days, if you're being productive and you're thinking productively and you're looking at all the tools that are available, less is more. And
yes, being well targeted and knowing where you're headed and what you're doing. The hardest clients to work with are always those that don't know what their goals are in terms of type of job. I just want a job that pays me X number of dollars a year. And when you're that unfocused and it's all helter-skelter, that is just not a productive way to find a job. And what happens is you do all of this stuff, you post all these jobs, and you don't get anything back, and it's very demoralizing. And then you get even, further sunk into the job search. It does not have to be like that.
Right. Well, I'm going to let that be the last word. If people want to know more about you and or your business or your publishing company, Emerald Career Publishing, or more about the books, how can they contact you?
Best thing to do is go to my website, which is wendyenelow.com. Do you want me to spell Enelow?
I'll have that in the show notes, but it's W-E-N.
Okay, so it'll be there.
Yep, W-E-N-D-Y.
Or they can go to Emerald. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
No, I was going to spell it out for everyone. So it's WENDYENELOW.com, correct?
Right, so Wendy at wendyenelow.com, or you can Google Emerald Career Publishing, where you'll find all of our books. And again, look at the job search book. Find out what are the difference between writing job posting letters and e-notes and letters to recruiters and thank you letters, which are critically important, and so few people do them, and networking letters and the different nuances, and you'll find that you feel much more empowered about managing your search.
Absolutely. And it's moderately priced as well, if I can even say so myself.
Yeah, I think. Oh, well, thank you. It's only $18.95.
Right.
I had to look on the back of it, even though I make the price. I had to think of what it was. Yeah, $18.95. So yeah, all the resume books are reasonably priced.
Yes.
So, any other questions?
No, that's really it. I'm just going to end the show right here. I want to thank everybody who's listened in to leave some feedback on iTunes, where you can find the Voice of Job Seekers podcast, or you can send me a note at mark@thevoiceofjobseekers.com. You can also go to thevoiceofjobseekers.com, go to the right-hand side, and press the speed pipe button, and you can leave a comment right there on the site. You don't have to do anything else. I'll also take calls. You'll get a voice message. It's at 708-365-9822. And you can also text me at that particular number, and I'll be glad to return your call or your text. Again, thank you very much. We'll look forward to seeing you next week for another great show. You have a great week.